Style, pain, blood.
Oh my god! Yes! Do you know what I mean, right?
I went to the bathroom in an elevator once. Shit went down. Hello everyone, thank you very much for tuning into my video. We're going to be doing a little showcase of the game Zombies Ate My Neighbours, which is a game that came out for the Super Nintendo and the Sega Mega Drive. It's a two-player game where you kill a bunch of monsters to accumulate points and rescue your neighbours. But did you ever wonder where some of the monsters and references came from? Well, then you're in the right place, because that's what we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So first off, let's talk about some of the monsters. Zombies. Now we've all heard of zombies, we all know where they come from, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. Zombies are all over the place, even more so now than when the game first came out. But an interesting little factoid for you is that the cover of Zombies Ate My Neighbours actually uses zombies from the movie Night of the Living Dead. It just recolours them a bit, but it's quite obvious it's the same zombies. Mummies. Again, there have been more mummy movies than you can shake a stick at, whatever that means. But I would imagine this game is probably referencing the original Mummy movie with Boris Karloff that came out in the 30s. Evil Dolls. This one's pretty obvious, I think. It's a reference to Chucky from the Child's Play movies, and also the Chucky movies later on. But did you ever wonder why the dolls turn into fire babies when you kill them? Well, it's because of this scene from the original Child's Play. Jelly Blobs. They are a very clear reference to the movie The Blob, starring Steve McQueen, which came out in the 50s. And interestingly, they are killed using the fire extinguisher. Why is that, you ask? Because that's exactly how they were killed in the original movie. Take a look.
CO2. That's it. It's cold.
Chainsaw Maniacs are a pretty clear reference to both Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies and Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th movies. The Maniacs seem to be wearing his mask. Squidmen are a clear-cut reference to Creature from the Black Lagoon, one of the best sci-fi horror movies of all time.
A woman's beauty, the bait that brought it out of its lair. See underwater thrills never photographed before. See titanic underwater battles never dreamed of before in this most terrifying of the science fiction adventures.
Now, there have been a lot of movies about Martians, particularly horror movies of course, but I'm pretty sure that these Martians are a clear-cut reference to Invasion of the Saucer Men. Here's the poster. They look pretty much identical if you ask me. Now this is a tricky one, the Mushroom Men. There haven't been a whole lot of movies about killer mushrooms, believe it or not. But there was one, a Japanese horror monster movie called Matango. It's quite obscure, but it's a bit of a cult classic.
Matango, the horrible mushrooms. Matango, the vegetable monster. Can they escape the dreaded Matango? You'll find out when you see Matango!
Now, Dopplegangers, there have been a lot of movies and TV shows about evil clones, but the ultimate piece of evidence for me is if you look at the movie Invasion of the Body Snatchers, just watch this and see how the clones are born, and then I think the reference becomes pretty clear.
Miles, where do they come from? I don't know. You're next!
Spiders, there have been a lot of horror movies about spiders. The first one that comes to mind is Arachnophobia, which came out in 1990, I think. That's all about lots of little spiders as opposed to giant ones, so that's probably your best bet for the spiders. Ants, oh man, this is one of my favourite references. This is a reference to the movie Them, a 50s creature feature. And what a very good movie, incidentally. I highly recommend watching it if you haven't.
antennae! Get the antennae!
Frankenstein, gee, I've got no idea. Werewolves, again, pretty well known horror monster, but I'm gonna assume that these are a reference to the Wolfman from the Universal horror movies of the 30s. The vampire, or well, I mean, let's just call it Dracula, that's what it is. But did you ever wonder why the crucifix is so effective on these monsters? Well, I mean, that's part of vampire lore, but here's a scene from the original Dracula, which shows it. I say the original, the most popular one.
More Wolfbane. More effective than Wolfbane, Count. Indeed.
Pod plants are definitely a reference to Day of the Triffids. The Tentacles, as I'm sure everyone is aware, are a reference to Day of the Tentacle, which was also made by LucasArts and Konami. I also think that the giant heads in the credits level of Zombies Ate My Neighbors are a reference to the head on the cover of this game. Possibly. The giant baby, believe it or not, there's not a single horror movie about a giant baby. So I'm gonna go with Honey, I Blew Up the Kid on this one.
And bigger.
He's over 100 feet tall.
You stop right now!
UFOs have been in countless movies, horror and otherwise, so I don't think we even need to discuss this one. The Snakeoids are 100% a reference to the movie Tremors, starring Kevin Bacon. The giant worms in that movie are called graboids, so I think the reference is quite clear.
Nope, just one.
The giant spider, again, there are lots of horror movies about giant spiders, but my gut feeling is telling me this is a reference to the movie Tarantula, which came out in the 50s.
A blunder that transformed a tiny insect into the 100-foot spider that was now ravaging the panic-stricken countryside.
And now we're on to some of the items. So, the Mr. Hyde transformation that you get from the mystery potion, I mean, the name kind of gives it away. It's a reference to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The monster potion, I'm going to be very honest with you, I do not think this is a reference to any movie in particular. I think this is just a generic monster that you play as. Pandora's Box, there's been a lot of movies featuring Pandora's Box of Greek mythology, but I do notice a little coincidence with them, and that is that they look quite a lot like the Lament configuration from the Hellraiser movies. I think it's quite possible. The inflatable clowns, I mean, they could be a reference to Pennywise from It, but I think they look more like the inflatable clown from Home Alone 2. Just my 2 cents. Here's an interesting one for you that I don't think many people will know. Dr. Tongue is the name of the first zombie you see in the movie Day of the Dead. As you can see from this clip, you'll see his tongue hanging out there, which is why he's called Dr. Tongue. Son of Dr. Tongue is absolutely referring to The Fly. If you look at this little clip here, you will see immediately why that is.
No, it's rats!
But that's not all. A lot of the level names have a lot of little references in them as well. We've got Weird Kids on the Block, which is a reference to the 90s boy band New Kids on the Block. Chopping Mall, which is the name of a movie. A good movie too. 7 Meals for 7 Zombies is a reference to 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, which is quite an old play which has been adapted for the screen a few times. Nightmare on Terror Street, I think most people will know this one. Nightmare on Elm Street. The Day the Earth Ran Away is a reference to one of the very best sci-fi movies of all time, The Day the Earth Stood Still. Look Who's Shopping, this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm gonna guess this is a reference to the movie Look Who's Talking. Where the red fern growls. Change one letter, you've got the answer. Where the red fern grows. Dances with Werewolves is a reference to the Oscar-winning movie Dances with Wolves. Mark of the Vampire, like Chopping Mall, shares its name with a movie. There's a movie called Mark of the Vampire, which also stars Bela Lugosi, the original and best Dracula. Look Who's Coming to Dinner. Change one word and it becomes Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. I'm pretty certain it's a reference to this, even though it's not a horror movie. I Was a Chainsaw Maniac, it has to be a reference to I Was a Teenage Werewolf, I'm almost sure of it. Destroy All Vampires, one of my favourite references. It references Destroy All Monsters, the Godzilla movie, highly recommended. Martians Go Home also shares its name with a movie called Martians Go Home. Danger in Picnic Park, I'm almost sure that this is a reference to the Al Pacino movie The Panic in Needle Park. It might not be, but that's my theory. And one final little reference for you, just as an excuse to talk about this movie. The shopping mall levels are almost certainly a reference to Dawn of the Dead, the best horror movie ever made and one of the best movies ever made, period.
It's everywhere.
What the hell is it?
Looks like a shopping center, one of those big indoor malls.
What are they doing? Why do they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
And that's all I've got, everyone. I'd like to thank Sky Hurricane for putting up the Monsters Guide video, which I stole and used for this. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if there are any references you think I missed, please let me know in the comments. This kind of thing is very interesting to me, so I'd like to know. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you soon.